Hello, this is Matt Ruff. I'm the author of Fool on the Hill, Set This House in Order, and Bad Monkeys, and I'm here to talk about my new novel, Lovecraft Country, which is coming out this week in trade paperback. Lovecraft Country is a supernatural historical drama set in and around Chicago in 1954 that combines pulp fiction adventure with a more serious exploration of Jim Crow-era racism. The protagonist, Atticus Turner, is a 22-year-old African-American Army veteran just back from fighting in Korea. And Atticus has an Uncle George who owns a travel agency and publishes the Safe Negro Travel Guide, which lists and reviews hotels and restaurants across the country that accept Black customers. And this is inspired by actual travel guides that existed during the 1940s and 50s. Atticus and his uncle are also both huge nerds. They're big science fiction and fantasy fans. And the novel tells the story of how they and their friends and family get drawn into a series of real-life weird tales. The book's title is a reference to H.P. Lovecraft, who's a famous science fiction and horror writer who's also infamous for being a white supremacist. And in my novel, there are basically two kinds of monster. You get the full range of pulp fiction horrors like ghosts and creatures from beyond space and time and mad scientists and sorcerers. But then there are also the more mundane terrors of 1950s era racism that frequently prove more daunting to my protagonists. And Lovecraft Country is sort of a way of bridging these two types of horror. So it's a reference both to the paranormal landscape that monsters come from, but also to America and America's monsters. So to answer some frequently asked questions about the novel, first of all, a lot of people want to know, is this set in the mythos, the Lovecraftian fictional universe, and do I need to know anything about H.P. Lovecraft or his stories in order to understand what's going on? And the answer to these questions is no. While there are supernatural things in the novel, and some of them may remind you of things that you would encounter in Lovecraft, Cthulhu does not appear. And if you don't know who Cthulhu is, don't worry, the novel tells you everything you need to know. Another question, how scary is it? Maybe you're intrigued by the science fiction fantasy stuff or the history, but you're not so sure about the horror aspect. So the first thing you should know, Lovecraft Country, there is not a lot of gore in the novel. The horror is mostly of the creeping dread variety, where you're in a place where you know you don't belong and you're waiting for something bad to happen, and then, oh my God, the bad thing is happening. And obviously people's tastes vary, but I've talked to enough readers now that this is a novel that tends to appeal to people who don't ordinarily like horror. So I would call it scary, but not too scary. A final question. This is a story about racism, and I think some people may be wondering, especially with everything that's going on in the news today, do I really want to read a novel about that when I can just turn on C-SPAN? Won't this just depress me? And my answer to that is that in Lovecraft Country, I try to be honest and straightforward about the challenges that African Americans faced in the 1950s, and in many cases still today. But this is not a novel about suffering. This is a novel about ordinary Americans just trying to make it through the day safe and sane and morally upright. So there are some scary moments. There are some heartbreaking moments. There are injustices that may make your blood boil. But there's also courage and heroism and ingenuity and even some laughs. And I think in the end, you will be left more hopeful than despairing. So the book is Lovecraft Country, and it's out now in paperback, and it's also available in ebook. You can read more about it and more about me at my website, www.bymattruff.com. Thanks for listening.